To say we've covered a lot of topics on Now at Ohio State podcast would be an incredible understatement. From medicine to the arts, astrophysics to athletics, we've so many things that make Ohio State a hub for innovation. And each episode has been insightful and entertaining in its own way. But none has sparked more curiosity or more conversation than the one about artificial intelligence, and rightfully so. AI continues to dominate headlines, revolutionize research, and shape our daily lives in ways both visible and unseen. It's powering discoveries, transforming industries, and changing what it means to connect, communicate, and create. At Ohio State, AI research is expanding fast. From healthcare and agriculture to ethics, data privacy, and network design, and helping define how this technology evolves. So it only makes sense that Now at Ohio State is launching a short series on AI, exploring where it's been, where it's going, and how Ohio State is helping lead the way. I'm Matt Stessner, and you're listening to Now at Ohio State. We talk with researchers, innovators, and bold thinkers who look at our world, see what the real challenges are, and create the solutions that people need now. To start our AI series, we're talking about how artificial intelligence meets one of the most fundamental parts of modern life, communication. How does AI connect to the networks that move information, shape national security, and even aid humanitarian efforts? And how can this technology be designed not just for speed, but also for impact? Ness Shroff is a computer science and engineering professor at Ohio State. He's also the director of AI Edge, one of the 3 National Science Foundation AI institutes based here, and a global leader in the design of intelligent communication networks. Here, he talks with our Ross Bischoff about how AI and next-generation communication networks are working together to change the future. Everything from disaster recovery and healthcare to privacy, cybersecurity, and even conservation.
Ness, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, just kind of give people an idea of what you do.
Over the years, I've worked with a wide variety of really brilliant students and postdoctoral researchers on problems in many, many different domains. One branch of research that I focus on is designing the future generation telecommunication networks, networks that will be very, very high speed, that will allow us to communicate with each other as if we are in the same room, even though we may be actually, thousands of miles apart. Sort of what I would say, think of as Zoom 4.0 kind of a thing. And then there's another part of my research that focuses on machine learning problems, where we study foundations of machine learning, how machine learning can be used to design new systems, can be used for, say, medical healthcare areas, and also, how do you make the machine learning systems more useful in terms of, there are things that humans do that we kind of take for granted, like let's say if you learn how to ride a bicycle and then you learn how to drive a car and then you learn how to drive a truck, you don't forget how to ride a bicycle. Well, it turns out machine learning forgets. There is something called catastrophic forgetting, and how do you prevent that? And those are the kinds of fundamental problems that I'm interested in.
In the summer of 2021, the National Science Foundation awarded Ohio State with 2 AI institutions, and you are the director for AI Edge, which is one of those. First of all, just kind of give us an idea of what AI Edge is and talk about the vision for it.
Sure. We are leading, at Ohio State, this institute, which consists of 11 different universities, several Fortune 500, really Fortune 100 companies in the machine learning space, in the AI space. A lot of our nation's DoD labs are part of this institute. And we've also recently gone global. We've attracted top universities from South Korea as well as India to sort of join our consortium. And if you really think about it, AI and networking are perhaps two of the most important information technologies. These are technologies that have helped improve people's lives in a variety of different ways. They are certainly major drivers of our national economic competitiveness, national security, and national defense. And so the overall vision of AI Edge is really to leverage the synergies between artificial intelligence and communication networks to develop not only a research, but also an education, a knowledge transfer, and a workforce development environment that will help really develop U.S. leadership, U.S. technological leadership in future generation networks and distributed intelligence, hopefully for many, many decades to come. The U.S. really has been a pioneer of these technologies, but recently it's lost its competitive edge because of global investments, especially made in 5G wireless domains. So this is an opportunity for us to sort of work collaboratively in order to do exciting work in this space that will hopefully launch future transformative applications, things that would happen, say, in autonomous transportation, AI-assisted healthcare, smart manufacturing, interconnected robots, and so on. So that's sort of the broad vision.
When we say the edge, what are we talking about specifically? Because I think that affects people more than what you would think of as like the core of the internet, correct?
Correct, yeah. So, whenever I give a technical talk, I basically say that there is a very precise definition of the edge, which is also a very useless definition, which basically means everything outside of the core of the internet. That's sort of the precise definition. But the reality of the edge is this is an area where you would experience most of the growth that would take place. So if you can think of your cellular networks, this will be part of the edge. Your Wi-Fi networks that you have, that's part of the edge. Now, with the Internet of Things, this is sort of a booming thing where you have small devices that will be all pervasive. You will have edge open up in things like light bulbs, traffic lights. You will have edge on the cars. Each car now is really a computer on wheels, and that's going to have an edge, especially when you have autonomous driving that's built. We expect most of the explosive growth to happen because these devices, such as your smartphones and your smart devices, are just growing exponentially. And the second reason is that this is also an area where we are not limited by the shackles of legacy. So what I mean by that is that we have a lot of good ideas on how to, say, transform the core, but it's very difficult to transform the core because standards have been set in stone for a long time, and there is a huge reluctance to change those standards because of the investment that's needed to change things in the core. While the edge is sort of malleable and it's growing, and so standards are also flexible, and this is where we can have a real impact.
I don't think a lot of people have gone to a data center. So when I say AI Edge, this is something that's going to have a big impact on a lot of people's lives, correct?
Absolutely. One of our focus, for example, is what we call networks for AI, where we are essentially creating a platform where users will be able to communicate and collaborate with each other's devices in order to solve problems that might be important to them from an AI point of view. So rather than pay a particular company for their AI needs, the goal is to democratize AI. It's basically to be able to get it to the end users so that they are not limited by their own devices, but at the same time, they don't need to pay money to a large company for their computing needs, for their AI needs. They can actually do it in a collaborative way, in a decentralized way.
You have some incredible examples where the AI Edge Institute can better people's lives going forward. Can you kind of just give me some of those examples right now?
Sure. So it could be a natural disaster or a human-made disaster, where essentially you can imagine, like Katrina, many, many years ago, where you have a huge flood come in, a huge hurricane come in, and all of a sudden, a lot of your infrastructure has been destroyed. Now, what do you do? And so you can imagine the angst of these folks that are trying to reach healthcare providers, trying to reach emergency providers, but they're simply not able to get through. One, because part of the network is damaged, and two, because everybody is trying to reach them. Right? So the networks have become jammed. So one of the things that we're working on, for example, is to create a network in the sky. So we have drones that can distributively sense the environment. They can reconfigure themselves, use very efficient AI tools to cut through the interference and allow people to communicate with their loved ones, allow people to communicate with emergency providers, healthcare providers, etc. In addition to that, our technology can also connect to automated vehicles on the ground, which can use our recent breakthroughs in smart reinforcement learning to basically safely go and pick up folks that might be difficult for, say, a human to go and might be too risky for a human to go and evacuate. So this is kind of an example of situation where you have a devastation that's happened, and AI Edge can help develop the foundations to alleviate the impact of the devastation.
Another one that's really interesting is cybersecurity. Could you talk about those possibilities also?
Yeah, so there are two aspects to this that AI Edge is working on. One is security, which is to ensure that communication networks that we deploy, the control mechanisms that we deploy, have as few vulnerabilities as possible. So we are basically using AI, developing AI tools in order to reduce the number of vulnerabilities in our networks so that our networks become far less compromised. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it that we are working on is privacy. So if you look at your cell phone, one of my colleagues, Zhixiang Lin, he shows that at least on Android phones, there are a lot of apps that leak private information, which should not happen. And so there must be a way of identifying how that happens in an efficient way. How do you prevent that leakage from occurring? So there's a whole new need to ensure privacy because machine learning is so data intensive. So in a certain sense, the more data that we generate for ourselves, we need to make sure that we share it in a way in which we don't expose ourselves to attacks. And that's something that AI Edge is focused on as well.
A lot of the work being done at AI Edge really is a big piece of it goes back to just national security in a number of realms. Can you talk about why it's important in that aspect?
Not only AI Edge, but I, for example, I'm part of a Future G Center with the Army Research Lab, with Arizona State. And there we are developing AI tools for the networking environment in a battlefield. When you go, for example, in a battlefield, you don't have access to your cellular towers. It's very, very important to national security that you be able to communicate in a hostile environment without necessarily the resources that you would have within, say, the U.S. infrastructure. So that would be one. Another one is that if you look at sites like the Department of Defense or the Pentagon or anything, they have thousands of attacks daily or monthly trying to infiltrate their systems. If we could create an environment by which you can use machine learning tools to understand where the vulnerabilities in these systems are, then you can put appropriate resources in those places in order to prevent these attacks from happening.
One of the things that's really interesting about your work is working with the Wexner Medical Center. Talk about that.
So AI Edge has a significant medical focus in the sense of developing the technology for enabling things like remote surgeries, enabling things like remote healthcare. There's sort of the telecommunications piece, which AI Edge does. But what we've realized is that some of the solutions that we develop, some of the AI breakthroughs that we develop in AI Edge could actually be beneficial in healthcare and medicine itself. I was asked to give a talk at the Ear, Nose, and Throat department graduating MDs about how AI could help healthcare. And so I did a little bit of research, and I found that there is a disease called peripheral arterial disease, which affects roughly 500 million individuals globally. So it's a fairly large disease, but its rate of diagnosis is very poor. So they did a study, I think it was in Mount Sinai, with something like 1,500 individuals, and they found that specialists diagnosed this peripheral arterial disease called PAD. Roughly, I think it was on the order of with 37% accuracy. I might be missing the number, but the accuracy rate was in the 30s, right? So quite poor. And then, there was a study that took the same individuals and ran it through a very basic AI tool, a very basic deep learning, supervised learning tool, and found that accuracy rate could be increased to 80%. And then there were follow-up works, which I talked about there, which actually showed that you could go all the way up to 90% in some cases if you kind of did something better. And in some cases, all the AI did was accumulate information based on the notes that the doctors had taken about the individual patients. So the data was all there. And so that got us thinking, and there was several projects that the Wexner Medical Center is very interested in collaborating with us on, especially in terms of detecting early on-stage cancer, detecting, for example, cancer without expensive genetic sequencing, just based on data. So the variety of problems like that we are right now starting to look at.
You touched on your talk to some medical students, but you've also been dealing with communities around Columbus, going to library talks. And what are the concerns you hear? What do people ask you about AI?
Yeah, I think the big concerns that people have are, how will it impact jobs? How will it impact, job losses in specific areas? And the other big question is, when will AI become sentient? Right? And I think the job loss question is a very legitimate question. I mean, there are things that AI can do that could result in job losses, and we are too early in its evolution to just know how large scale those job losses could be. It's probably, if I was to guess, I would say that jobs where there is a lot of repetition, there's a lot of data entry, are probably ones that are going to be most affected. Also, simple coding jobs, programming jobs are ones that might get affected. If AI develops, very sophisticated robots, you might see surgical jobs being affected. So it's certainly something which one has to, consider. But like any technology, I believe that AI will also create a lot of jobs. And so it's a tool that will maybe enable us to live a richer life, a more creative life, without perhaps having to worry about, mundane things. A little bit like what we did with the calculator, right? We don't have to now worry about computing very large numbers in our heads. We can just run it on a calculator or a computer. So that would be one. The sentient part of AI, I don't think we are anywhere near that. So at least as of now, I don't think that we need to be too worried about it. But it'll probably, again, I'm guessing, it'll probably need some major breakthrough for AI to be truly sentient.
Ness, fascinating as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
AI can sometimes feel abstract. The wild concept of complex algorithms running in invisible places. But as we continue to work with it and solve with it, it can also sometimes come across as deeply human. AI is about solving problems that affect how we live, work, and stay connected, even in moments of crisis. From emergency response to medical innovation to the phones in our pockets, AI is reshaping what's possible, and it's only the beginning. In the coming episodes of this AI series, we'll talk with more Ohio State researchers who are using artificial intelligence to ask bigger questions and finding answers that could change the way we think, create, and care for each other. Because the true story of AI isn't about the technology, it's about the people guiding it. Now at Ohio State is produced by The Ohio State University. For more information, visit us at go.osu.edu/now. I'm your host, Matt Stessner. Thanks for listening.